name is Mark Poteet. I am located in Tampa, Florida. In terms of what I do for my career, I own an independent consulting practice that focuses on IO psychology across several areas, including things like employee training and development, performance management, leadership coaching and development, do some competency modeling and job analysis, as well as the design and implementation of assessment centers. So that's my main business that I do, running that practice. I also do some occasional writing and research, and I'm also an adjunct professor teaching within an executive master's program right now. Well, while I was in undergraduate school studying for a degree in psychology, I was uncertain about what I wanted to do with that, where I wanted to go. And I was introduced to the field of biopsychology by a professor who was providing me with some career guidance and who knew me a little bit. So I investigated the field a little further, went down to the career guidance office and read up about careers in IO psychology. And after learning how it was this integration of psychology and business, I realized that it was a natural fit for some of my interests. So through the help of another professor, I joined the research lab of an IO psychologist, where I learned a good deal about the field, about its research, about its scientific background, about potential applications of IO psychology. So this really solidified my interest in IO psychology. It led me to apply to and ultimately attend the IO psychology doctorate program within the same university. So that's what got me into IO psychology, and it was through taking my graduate school seminars, through conducting research, through different assistantships that got me lots of opportunities to practice in IO psychology, that my specific interests were refined, and that I really learned at that point that practicing in the field as opposed to going into academia was what I really wanted to do. Well, I think it's important to talk about what leadership coaching is, because if you read up on the area, you'll find that there are different definitions of coaching, several of which have their own unique twists on them. However, I found that throughout most of them, there's some common themes and threads as to what defines leadership coaching. It's thought of as a formal engagement between a qualified leadership coach and a client who's typically working within or targeted for a leadership position. And it's a relationship and an engagement where the coach is focused on working with the client to help him or her increase their capabilities, to change or enhance behaviors in order to improve or enhance their professional performance and or business results. So what the coach does is essentially help the client accomplish these goals through using different psychological, behavioral, and learning methods, such as conducting assessments to identify what a client's goals are, what their values are, what their strengths, and what their development opportunities could be. A coach will also provide very clear and constructive feedback to the client in order to help the client gain that awareness of where their strengths and opportunities lie. And then from there, the coach will do a lot of open-ended questioning to allow the client to reflect on their goals, their styles, and their impact. But the questions also allow the client to generate their own learnings, their self-learnings about their style, their impact, and some of what they may do in order to reach their goals or to make the improvements they're seeking to make. And finally, the questions allow the client to explore new ways of thinking, new ways of acting within the work environment, to develop new approaches and strategies for leading others. So in addition to asking the open-ended questions, what I do in my coach and what other coaches will do is provide some teaching around leadership theories, styles, and behaviors. They'll serve as a sounding board for their clients' ideas and suggestions, help them to understand the pros and cons of different approaches and different styles. They'll also play devil's advocate from time to time to help them challenge some ideas, get them to think clearly through them, and also do some role playing with clients to help them practice new behaviors and new approaches. So all of these are all focused on helping the client learn, and it's important to note that coaches also want to focus on helping the clients become better learners themselves, to in essence learn how to learn, so that the client doesn't become dependent solely on the coach in order to enhance his or her capabilities. That's a great question. The approach that I take in my coaching practice, and certainly it's not unique to my approach or unique to me, is I tend to take a reasonably structured approach to the development process. So typically each of my clients will create a development plan that contains specific goals and objectives, pointing to what competencies or behaviors he or she wants to learn, change, enhance, or leverage. And the plan generally also includes action items, essentially things they're going to do in order to reach those goals. But importantly to your question, the client's going to develop some potential outcomes, or what I like to call measures of success, that are linked to the development objectives. And these outcomes can cover things from the traditional training and learning literature, evaluation literature, such as reactions, learnings, behavior change. And the measures of success can include things such as the client's self-perceptions about how much they think they've improved, or their satisfaction with the coaching, or their perceived benefit of or utility of the coaching. But these measures of success can also include feedback from the client's colleagues, peers, direct reports, customers, or supervisor. Sometimes the successful completion of any project or assignment that's part of a development plan can be a measure of success, and certainly, if it's applicable, any impact to the business as a result of what's being worked on within the development plan. So, building those measures of success, what we'll do throughout the coaching engagement is continually track their progress on both implementing the action plans as well as how they're doing in terms of achieving those measures of success. So toward the end of the coaching engagement, we may go back and collect more assessment, more feedback from others to see if there's been any change from the start to the end of the relationship. And toward the end of the relationship, we'll also do a bit of a retrospective accounting of what things we've been working on, what changes have they seen, what successes have they seen, to get a sense of what's worked throughout the coaching, what progress they've made, but also it points to some of what they can continue to work on after the coaching engagement is over. So those are some of the ways that a coach can use the development planning process to track progress, but the clients often asked to provide feedback into the coaching engagement as well. In coaching programs I've worked with, we've done this formally through some type of survey after each of the coaching meetings, or you can do it informally as part of any coaching session through just asking some open-ended questions. And as a coach, you're also qualitatively making observations of how you're working with the client as well. Is the client engaged? Are they following up and following through on some of the assignments and the action plan? And you can use those informal observations to help adjust your style and your approach to the coaching relationship as well. So I think in those ways you can actually track how the coaching is working for the client. Throughout both the literature and what I found throughout my practice and working with others in the coaching area, certainly not an exhaustive list, but certainly I think there's some things that coaches can do to help enhance the effectiveness of the relationship. And one of the things that research tells us is that building rapport with the client is critical for coaching because it helps to establish trust in the relationship. So it's important as a coach to spend a lot of time asking open-ended questions to learn about your client. What's their situation? What are their goals? What are their values? What are their interests? What are their concerns? That helps you both structure the relationship and the developmental work, but it also helps you to establish that trust. And certainly positioning the coaching as a two-way street in terms of feedback, that you want the client to provide you with some feedback as well, can be important for establishing that rapport and that trust. And sometimes I'll also help set the client up for success by discussing what are some of the best practices or key characteristics of active learners so that they become effective learners themselves. So I think that rapport and trust is really one of the best practices, working to establish that. But as we just discussed a while ago, I think there's a lot of structure that can work in the coaching relationship as well. So making sure you clearly discuss and set expectations for one another on things like communication and follow-up is important. I do spend time talking about what coaching is and is not. So setting the coaching role, setting parameters up of coaching around things like confidentiality, what approaches or things they can expect from me as their coach is very important. Helps put a little bit of structure. And as I said earlier, setting specific goals up front early on. What is it we want to be working on? helps to structure that coaching process as well. But above and beyond the structure and the relationship, I think it's important as coaches that we make sure that we're focusing on our client's agenda, that we don't attempt to impose our own values, our own goals, our own expectations on the client. We try to work within the client space, if you will. Asking open-ended questions helps to understand what that space is, but it also helps to facilitate good reflection and good introspection to help increase your client self-awareness. And we both talked about the importance of structure, but it's also important to be flexible and adaptable, to make adjustments in one's approach to the coaching engagement, to the plan that we've put together. Adapting your coaching style can be an effective way, a best practice for helping to get the most out of the coaching. And focusing the learning on what's applicable to the client, both in terms of the work that they do, as well as to the organizational context within their work. So I think those are some of the key things I'd say focusing on. And as we've talked earlier about continually assessing the progress of the coaching relationship, the success of that is important as well too. When I'm talking to individuals sometimes about what coaching is, they also want to know what does it take to be a good coach. And I think through some of what we've described, you can pull out some key knowledges, skills, and attributes of effective coaches. Certainly having good listening skills is important, to be able to tune in to what your client is thinking, what they're feeling is important. Being open and flexible, but being able to ask good, open-ended questions is impactful as well. Having some knowledge of psychology, obviously, of business even, and even organizational knowledge could be important to help your client. And attributes in terms of things like being collaborative, the ability to build good relationships, to be empathetic, sensitive, while also being able to tolerate a bit of ambiguity in the coaching relationship, because sometimes the direction is not always clear as to where we should steer, where the client can go. So that's why asking good questions to help find that direction is really important as well. So I think those are some of the things. It's not an exhaustive list, but some of the key characteristics of good coaches.